Okay, we're live. Welcome in. I'm the real underscore G Warner on Twitter. Going to go through this Saturday of the last weekend of the soccer season, all of the European big leagues. So going to cover La Liga, Serie A, and Bundesliga, saving another special podcast devoted only to the Premier League and Liga. Let's see if some more people want to watch these videos as opposed to others. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But gonna go through them. I make my own lines, and usually I don't look at the lines beforehand. But I figured this last week, a lot of stuff, since there weren't a lot of midweek games, I might as well not shock myself so much live on camera. But without further ado, starting in Spain, we'll go with Osasuna getting a full goal right now from Real Sociedad, with most of the juice on their side. Osasuna played Atletico Madrid really tight last week, took a lead on the top of the table, eventual champions based on where the standings look right now. So they're in a fight. They're playing really well, or at least did play well, frustrated Atleti quite a bit. It's very possible that I heard that Suarez missed a bunch of chances, but, life is what it is at this point. And good performance, good showing. Tough that they gave up like 2 goals in the last 5 minutes, or else this title race might have been handed over to Real Madrid already. Sociedad is in 5th. I pulled up the standings nearby so I can make sure that I'm saying the right stuff for this gleaming last podcast or YouTube Live, whatever the heck it's called. Anyway, Sociedad's in 5th place right now at 59 points. They have 1 point lead over Real Betis, Villarreal, and then those are the only 2 that can catch them. And based on the already winning the, I guess that was last year's that they won. So Barcelona won, and so there shouldn't be a lot of issues here, but they don't want to get in the UEFA Conference League. They want to stay in Europa. I believe they will still qualify for that if they finish in 6th. So if they drop 1 point and Real Betis goes above them, there are certain tiebreakers with all types of things. But a Sociedad loss here would be an issue if Villarreal could tie them, and then it would come down to head-to-head. Sociedad, I'm sure, will be playing a full lineup because they want to avoid that. They have some players that are internationals that'll be on the Spanish national team, etc. Maybe some others as well. I know Yarzabal is going to be playing for Spain and probably playing an important role, at least somewhat. So Sociedad want to win this match. They need to. A win and they're solidified in 5th place. A draw and gets a little bit hairy with Betis and Villarreal. Villarreal's got a tough one with Real Madrid. And Betis is they're all simultaneous kickoffs on Saturday. There's one match today that was already played. They're playing Celta Vigo. So there's something to play for there, at least for one of them. And certainly could get jumped if both those teams end up winning their matches, but I'm not sure that both will do that. So Sociedad's in a pretty good position, but ultimately need to win this match, should be putting as much as they can into it. And giving a full goal on the road is a significant number. I don't know that fans are going to be available or allowed in for this one in the Basque Country, but there were fans in the Valencia, Andalusia, I believe the state, Estado. So that's something to look out for, and something that I will certainly look into deeper when I'm not live on YouTube. But anyway, so Osasuna currently catching a goal is interesting to me, as most teams getting a +1 are. Certainly if this dropped below that number, I think I'd be less interested, but it's one of those things where I do think their defense has been playing pretty well. They've struggled this year to take their chances, but they create them. And Ante Budimir up front has been playing great. The Croatian international has been awesome. Scored that big goal against Atleti to take the lead, and that at least will add some sort of concern for a Real Sociedad defense that has been, I think, their problem. They can score plenty of goals, but their center backs and center defensive mids have sustained a lot of injuries this season, and there's been a fair amount of rotation. Unfortunately, some of it's looked really, really bad. The Sevilla match comes back to mind. Just gross how poor they were that day. Osasuna certainly doesn't have the threats that Sevilla does, but Budimir is playing about as well as almost anybody in La Liga right now. So someone to take seriously. This one's moved from all the way up to +1. I was thinking it'd be a half a goal underdog. So definitely the side I'm looking at. And as an underdog player, I would never really be looking at Sociedad anyway. So take that for what it's worth. Next, Celta Vigo hosts Real Betis, currently getting a quarter of a goal at home, another home dog. Most of the juice on Betis, who have something to play for. They're trying to make it into Europa League. They're right now, it looks like they're ahead of Villarreal despite having a really poor, actually a -1 goal difference on their season. And that's likely because of a head-to-head being the decision maker in that one. Betis' defense has been not great. They've struggled to win over the last month or two, really. But they've done enough and have gotten a couple wins lately, which you could definitely argue were not deserved. They've been great at not losing, but as one of the better clubs in La Liga, one of the bigger clubs, they should be doing more than that. So their defense has been an issue. It was terrible last season, is really why they kind of finished far from European qualification. And Celta de Vigo certainly can test that, as they have one of the best offenses in the game. So there's not going to be a lot of defense played here, which makes the quarter goal underdog a little bit less, I guess, interesting. Total is only 3 on this match, but there probably should be goals. And I think a lot of times if you're betting a +1 quarter, you certainly want your side to win, but I think you're really hoping or saying that a 0-0 at least gets you half a unit. And that doesn't look like it'll be the case here. So Celta Vigo is going to have to exploit the Betis defense to score. They can certainly do that. Betis also have a lot of attacking talent, a lot of attacking quality, and have probably a better defense than Celta Vigo has, but they didn't look like it last year, and they have put a ton of work into making it better this year, and it hasn't really done too much besides getting them to where they are. Giving up 48 goals. No one else in the top, let's see, has given up that many in the top 7. So the only team that's given up more are in the top 8 are Celta de Vigo, who are also -1 goal differential. So there's a good chance that this is a victory for one of these clubs. Certainly would put Betis in their Europa League qualification in peril. And honestly, I'm interested in Celta Vigo. Thought they might even be a favorite here, but then the difference in what they're playing for certainly says something. Celta de Vigo is going to try to protect Iago Aspas as much as they can, as he's an older player, but is an awesome creator. And he certainly is someone that swings lines if he doesn't play. So we'll see what happens. But I'm very interested in Celta Vigo, as I think they're 2 bad defenses and one at home that's also getting some candy, and a draw will win you half a bet. That's something that's really hard for me to pass up, I think. Next, Elche host Athletic Club in the drop zone, and they are tied with Huesca. So they lose the head-to-head and have to outperform, while they still have a chasing pack behind them with Eibar at 30 points, Valladolid at 31, Elche is at 33, with Huesca also at 33. So Elche could be passed by Valladolid if they win and Elche lose. I don't know if that necessarily matters, because all 3 get relegated. There's a playoff system for La Liga 2, or whatever it's called. So there's not a situation where they can fight their way out. So they're going to do their best to try to get out of that place, and likely are going to be very clued in on what's happening in Huesca. Elche fell behind 1-0 on a penalty last weekend. Were favored at Cadiz, which was saying something, considering how they haven't really won any matches for a long time and really haven't looked very good. They're a defensive side that aren't really in a position to really score a lot of goals. Currently, they're a half a goal favorite with all the juice on the Athletic Club side, and that has a lot of money's clearly been hitting Athletic Club Bilbao, as it's all the juice, and it looks like it's going to fall to a quarter. Athletic Club doesn't have much to play for. They're sitting mid-table, I think, which is a little bit disappointing for them, but maybe that matters, but I don't know that necessarily does. I'm wondering what their lineup's going to look like, because they've been playing a lot of young players over the last month or so. So there's not that big of a step backwards if they're playing their youngsters, because that's what they've been starting for a while, and they've been playing pretty well, beating beating Atletico Madrid, putting a really good performance and making Real Madrid really sweat last weekend. So there's plenty here that I think I'd want to be against Elche. They certainly are going to be pushing forward to score goals. They could get a point and survive if Huesca do not, but they also would require Valladolid to not win, which they play Atleti, so that's a big deal. But still possible. And then that comes down to head-to-head tiebreakers, which I'm not going to be doing on this little YouTube live. So moving on from that one, I guess there's not a lot more to say other than I think Athletic Club as a half a goal underdog is certainly interesting to me. I don't want to necessarily lose that number, as +1/2 is a big difference to +1/4. Athletic Club could play a bunch of players that are really from their youth side or something. That certainly is an issue for me. And it's likely what's going to keep me, especially with this big juice as well, with potentially the market wanting to back teams that are in the must-win situation. I don't agree with that. And I think that's kind of silly, but that's what they seem to do in every league. So every sport. It happens in college basketball in the US as well. But ultimately, I'm looking at Athletic Club and will be interested in their defense first attitude. They might even boss this game with possession, but I think it would even be more intelligent to let Elche try to do that and leave themselves exposed. Next, Real Madrid hosting Villarreal. In a match that matters for both of these clubs. Villarreal also have Europa League final against Manchester United coming up next week. And that's certainly something important to them because they can qualify for Champions League if they win that match. Meanwhile, Real Madrid chasing Atleti, must win here. Draw is not enough. But that's pretty much how Real Madrid approach every match. Send everybody forward. Their defense is always great, and they don't surrender a lot of chances. In this case, Villarreal certainly have plenty of attacking talent, and they like to go forward even against clubs like Barcelona. Real Madrid doesn't have that type of offensive output ability, I think, that Barcelona does, but are clearly better defensively. Have, I think, given up 11 less goals this season. So that's pretty significant. I've scored 19 less, but Barcelona seems to be the blowout kings in that scenario. But Villarreal, they got plenty to play for. Unai Emery has shown that he can coach, whether he could do it at Arsenal or not. And I'm interested to see what Villarreal puts out there in their lineup, because if they're eyes on Champions League qualification and rest some players, they could certainly do that, but I'm not sure that they will. And this one matters for them also to try to sneak into Europa League as like an insurance policy if they don't win the Europa League final. So that really matters. I expect Villarreal to play everybody. They're currently getting a goal and a quarter. My guess was that number exactly. Looks like based on the juice changing, some money has come in on Real Madrid this week, which you would expect as they get bet every week, no matter what. And as this keeps climbing higher to 1.5 potentially, I get more interested in Villarreal because a good result here is important for them. A victory would be incredible for the chase in La Liga and basically anointing Atleti, or it would, but also would be huge for them trying to chase down a guaranteed Europa League spot. The question is, I guess, in that situation, if you're backing Villarreal, are they going to score? It's going to be tough against Real Madrid because they're great defensively, but they're going to have to push forward for goals, and that's going to make it harder for them to win and keep a clean sheet. Certainly, if they score early or can play in sort of a defense mode, that benefits Real Madrid. But even then, I think they're pushing more for that second goal than they would be to prevent or to hang on to that 1-0 lead unless it gets really late and Atleti is losing, which I think is a low likelihood tomorrow. So next is Valladolid, speaking of, hosting Atletico, where if Atleti win, they win the league. If they draw, then it'll come down to a head-to-head, and I believe that falls in Real Madrid's favor after they won at least the first match of the two, first fixture. So Atleti should be pushing forward, trying like hell to win this match. They have shown, I think, even against Valladolid, that they struggled for like an hour, but then ended up scoring that first goal and then winning 2-0. They do that a lot against a lot of clubs, are really good at holding on to leads, and that's also another issue. But getting a goal and a half is interesting on Valladolid, who unfortunately also look like they need to win this match. A draw for them keeps them in the bottom three, and finishing 19th is no better than 20th. So they have to win. And Valladolid want to sit back and counter, and that's probably not going to be something they can do here, especially if they fall behind. They're going to have to push forward even further. So if you're backing Valladolid only getting a goal and a half here, and certainly there might be some movement, but looking at most of the juice on the Valladolid side, the market apparently thinks this one's going to be a little bit closer. But that's a good question to have, I think, about this one, because Valladolid can't play the way they want to when they need to win. Certainly if they scored an early goal, or maybe they try to sit back and play that counterattack game as long as they possibly can. But eventually, every second that passes, they have to end up pushing forward a little bit more. And that's not how they want to play. They're good, and I wish that they would stick around in this league. I think they're made me a ton of money this season, where unfortunately a lot of other teams in this league did not. But I'm still pretty interested in backing them. I don't want to back an inferior club that's going to have to play a different style than what they want. As I lose my voice, not even through Spain yet. So 16 minutes in, next one on Saturday is Huesca hosting Valencia. Currently Huesca a 3/4 goal favorite. Just hasn't moved too much since earlier in the week, but a draw might be enough for them here. Valladolid could I guess track them down with a victory themselves. Elche, Elche winning would put Huesca in a bad position. So might be one of the scoreboard watching and that determines how exactly they need to play. But luckily for them, they're playing Valencia, who have nothing to play for as they're on the beach. But they got to deal with Valencia's ability to score, and Huesca's defense has been questionable, to say the least, I think, for most of the second half of the season. Their offense has done enough, and that's, I think, why they sit in 17th place, barely safe by the head-to-head with Elche. But it's still not a really safe position to be in, because Valladolid could pass them if they lose. Elche could pass them with a draw if they lose. So losing would be losing would put Huesca in real big danger. But also a win would nearly clinch this for them. I think it would, as they have the tiebreaker with Elche, and Valladolid can't catch them if they win. So Huesca needs to win here. They know that already. Draw might be able to put them through, but it's probably not the greatest scenario for them. So they need to figure out how to make that happen. They certainly have the offense to do that. Valencia don't have the defense to prevent that. Probably will be a shootout, potentially. Valencia will be able to go and push forward as much as they want. I am curious what type of lineup Valencia puts out there, but they were a big winner last weekend, and certainly with no pressure playing a team that has to push forward, which Huesca, I think, has been willing to do that, but against the bigger clubs, they've tried to sit back and defend as much as possible. Might be why they're in the predicament that they're in, but I'm not sure that this is a scenario where they're changing their game plan too much, which is disappointing, because I would like that as a potential Valencia backer. But very curious to see who Valencia puts out there. If Jose Luis Gaya and the captain and the rest are out there, they're big guns, or if they're potentially looking at the Euro coming up in only a few weeks. I don't know that the club would put the Euro ahead of their own aims, but we'll see. Last but not least, on Saturday is Eibar hosting Barcelona. Eibar, bottom of the table, 3 points behind safety, and potentially if they won, and Elche and Huesca and Valladolid were unable to win or gain any points from that first two, potentially they're in a tiebreaker situation. I'm not sure what happens in that one. Haven't worked that out. But Eibar only getting a full goal, I guess sounds like a weird thing to say, but you'd think they'd get more from Barcelona, as I thought Barcelona might even be a 2-goal favorite. So this is a kind of a crazy number, which I think shows what Barcelona or the level of interest Barcelona have in this match. So I'm pretty interested by that, sort of the line being so much different than I was potentially expecting, to be interested a little bit more on the Eibar side. I think Eibar has certainly struggled this season as it's at bottom of the table, have had a bit of a resuscitation from the dead, Lazarus style, the last few weeks. 2 wins that were really big. One was a big rivalry match with Alaves, but It clearly hasn't been enough, and the loss last weekend was pretty damaging. But ultimately, they're in a position where they push forward, they play a high line. That's going to give Barcelona plenty of opportunities, which makes me nervous to go against one of the best scoring clubs in all of the world. Barcelona with 84 goals scored this season in 37 matches is pretty big. 65 from Atleti and Real Madrid, even though both sit above them in the table. Yeah, kind of a small number now that I think about it. Though I expect a lot bigger, as I've already said. Next, moving to Sunday for some matches that don't matter. That's why they're on Sunday to close it all up. Granada pick'em to Getafe. Getafe with almost all the juice. Getafe got to safety last weekend, huge for them, off of a cracking goal from Takefuso Kubo. Whatever. Anyway, bench player, outside the box goal, which is what they do. And pretty incredible that they were able to be safe after how poorly they've played and been unable to score at all for the past month, 2 months, 3 months, maybe the whole season. Only 28 goals scored the whole season, which is one less than bottom side Ibar. So their defense has been better, clearly, to hang around at that sort of point, with 43 goals allowed, which is almost as good as some of the European qualifiers or potentials. Villarreal with 42. So they're in that range. So they're playing a lot of low scoring games, and that's been good for them, at least to stay in the league. But that's really a result of not being able to create any offense. Granada will certainly give them opportunities as they want to push forward and play a more inspired, beautiful game of football. But that's an issue because if Getafe are not going to be sitting in the shell that they want to play, then Granada could score a bunch of goals on them. They have better attackers. Their forwards seem to be pretty old, but can certainly still hack it. And they have a great midfield. And I don't know that Getafe can really punish their defense. So I'm pretty interested in Granada at a pick'em right now at home, likely with fans because they're in the south of Spain as well. But we'll see what happens where this number goes. But certainly would love to see them underdogs, though I doubt it gets there. And last but not least, the curtain faller of the whole event of La Liga in 2021 is Sevilla hosting Alaves. Currently, Sevilla giving a full goal, which is a decent number. They clearly didn't look like they cared, even though they played a big, like the best lineup they could last weekend. Was surprised about that, but Villarreal really clearly showed that they cared about that match more, even though Sevilla wasn't technically mathematically disqualified or out of the title race. It looked like they were on the beach already. So I'm not sure what type of lineup we'd see here. Alaves has risen from the dead to get to safety. Good for them. 2 straight wins brought them to 38 points. So if they lost both of those matches, they'd be right in the dogfight. So that was a huge end of year grab. Their most recent manager has been, I think, a major help because their second manager of the season was a joke. Their first manager was okay, but they moved on from him because he wasn't picking up points, apparently. I guess I have some interest in Alaves just based on Sevilla not caring last weekend, but it's hard to really see what that would look like, and I'm sure they're not feeling good about how poorly that all went last weekend. So that covers La Liga in 23 minutes. Not exactly the short one that I was going for, but we'll move to Serie A, where I don't know if I've looked at these lines yet. So this might be like tradition where I have no clue what's coming my way. So the first match we're starting on Saturday are 3 matches at the same time. It looks like Calgary hosting Genoa. Currently Calgary giving a quarter of a goal with all the juice on their side. And Genoa, I feel like both these clubs have escaped relegation. Good for them. There's not a lot to play for, unfortunately, in Serie A this weekend. So this might be a little bit quicker than it I guess otherwise could have been if maybe Lazio makes a penalty in the midweek or something like that. But both these clubs are safe, probably disappointed with how they perform, but Genoa is always in this fight. And as an underdog here, I'm interested. Cagliari played a great defensive. They played really well, picking up points, playing offensive football, and then also when they needed to, getting a point at Napoli late and then drawing this last match as well. Good for them. Made it really hard on AC Milan, who could have qualified for Champions League, and now that's still up in the air with Juve looming. But ultimately, I think these clubs are pretty similar. So seeing that type of number on Calgary, even at home, makes me interested in Genoa. We'll see what lineups look like on Saturday afternoon. Crotone then with a magical steal, playing with 10 men for like an hour and a half, or like almost the whole game. I guess that would count. So like 80 minutes or so playing a man down. Got a late equalizer in stoppage time to put Benevento potentially to get knocked out, and then eventually knocked out and officially relegated. Good for them. They're still the worst defense in Serie A history. That's confirmed now. Fiorentina, they're hosting Fiorentina, getting half of a goal. It's pretty low, even if Fiorentina is on the beach, not playing anybody. They gave, I thought, a pretty good performance against Napoli last weekend, even losing 2-0. So there's not a lot that I want to do there. Unless Crotone was getting a ton more, I got to say. Sampdoria then hosts Parma, giving 3/4 of a goal. Parma relegated. Not much that I really want to do here, as Sampdoria can't score. So I guess I'm interested in being against them as a 3/4 of a goal favorite, but I don't think Parma's going to do it for me, because who knows what they're playing this weekend. Then moving to Sunday, Inter Milan hosts Udinese, giving 1.5 goals. That's a morning match with a big gap before the other matches start, I guess. Inter already won the Scudetto. Crazy, ridiculous rulings last weekend by the referee, official, whatever. He was a joke. Udinese, they're good at sitting back, playing counterattacking football. But I'm not sure I want to get in the way of Inter, who have been so good this season and are so deep and have so many good players. And probably should be pissed after losing to Juve under the circumstances that they were last weekend. Atalanta then hosts AC Milan in probably the biggest match of the weekend. Atalanta already clinched. AC Milan could have clinched with a victory last weekend against Calgary, who weren't playing for anything, but were unable to score. Goalless draw has put this match really in the limelight, I think, across Europe. Because if AC Milan can win this match, then Juve cannot catch them, and they will clinch. If they draw, though, then it starts to get a little more complicated, as Juve can pass them with a victory, and Juve's got a pretty easy matchup against Bologna. So how is AC Milan going to do this? Because Atalanta, pretty disappointed after losing the Coppa Italia in midweek. Have won 4 out of 5, where Milan has won 3 out of the last 4, but that was a big issue that they didn't win, and the loss before that has put them in this predicament, I guess, considering they're leading for almost the whole time. Currently at Pick'em, which is, I think, respectful of AC Milan for what they're going for here, and now that they need to win this match. Though I'm not sure that I trust AC Milan to do that, and I think Atalanta, if they play their full lineup, then they can certainly beat anybody, as they're one of the best sides in Serie A. Clearly in second place right now. That could change, but ultimately I think they were a decent threat to Inter, and for some reason look like, despite their low budget, look like the second best club in Italy. So Atalanta pick them at home with most of the juice right now. It really depends on what their lineup looks like. If they're a dog and they're playing who I would want to see, the wing backs that score goals. We'll see about Zuvan Zapata, Muriel, and all that sort of stuff. I know that they're looking to try to get a new keeper, so that might be a substitute, but I feel like keeper subs aren't that big of a deal. Backups certainly can lose games, but they're not likely to be in that position too often, or like the defense is making them try to stand on their head. You wouldn't expect the starter to do that either. Anyway, so AC Milan with all the pressure and as an inferior side here, we'll see what happens with this number. If Atalanta closes a favorite, I guess that makes AC Milan a little bit more interesting to me. Not so sure at Pick'em, and ultimately want to see where the lineups go and where the market goes. But all the pressure's on Milan, and I don't like a young AC Milan club that can certainly look pretty bad from time to time to have a lot of pressure on them to get a victory. Next, Bologna hosting Juve, getting 1 goal in 3/4. Bologna have shown that they can be competitive in some matches, but a lot of times they can't score, so they push forward, try to put a lot of pressure on the opponent. That's not what you want to do against Juve, because you don't want to give them chances on a counterattack or even just open space, because Kulusevski can find the corner with his left foot. Ronaldo, it's funny that I didn't mention him first, but Ronaldo obviously is a fear factor, and maybe he's been the focus of defenses, and that's why he hasn't performed as well this season. But I think that's something that, like Bologna getting a goal in 3/4 right now, even with all the juice on the Juve side, maybe that climbs to 2, but I'm not sure the way Bologna has played, giving up 2 goals in a draw last weekend against, or last Monday against Hellas Verona was not that impressive. And one less day after Juve played, or maybe 2 less days after Juve played on Sunday, Bologna on Monday. Not great, though Juve did have Coppa Italia midweek. So I guess there's a rest advantage here, because Juve did go all out for Pirlo's first and probably only trophy as the manager of Juventus. Next, Napoli given 2 goals of Verona. So Napoli's also in this fight, could get past. They're currently tied with Milan with a worse goal differential. So that tells me that Milan has the season series tiebreaker. So that's important, but certainly Napoli with a point will pass Milan if they lose to Atalanta. Juve, a point behind Napoli, certainly is an interesting and important match for sure. We'll see what happens, but Napoli need to win this match. Verona was pretty good to start the season. We're looking at basically cementing themselves in the top half of the table, and then have been a disaster since the second half started. And I think might get their manager relieved from his duties, despite looking like he was probably signing an extension after the first half. Anyway, it's one of those situations where Napoli have shown that they don't really have the prettiest offense, but they score goals. They can do it with a lot of different players, and they seem to come out of nowhere, but they happen so often that I guess I need to respect that at this point. And Verona can't really score, so when they do, they try to push forward, kind of like Bologna does, and press. And Napoli, I think, is a side that can get through. Certainly get through that press to score goals. Certainly pressure on them to win the match is not a great scenario, but it is what it is at this point. And I'm not sure that I want to play Verona, even getting a full 2 with pressure on the other side. Sassuolo then giving a half to Lazio. Lazio, pretty disappointing midweek, missing a penalty, Chiro off the post that could have kept the relegation battle interesting. But that's all decided at this point, so shame on them. But also have missed out on some opportunities to be also in this Champions League qualification race, and I'm sure they're pretty disappointed about not getting there. But this line says they're not playing anybody important. I don't know, because they played midweek, if that probably does mean there will be some rest. But Sassuolo giving half of a goal with most of the juice on their side tells me that Sassuolo is going to be playing a full lineup. They might be, as they want to pass Roma, try to get into like a conference league situation, which they're only 2 points behind, so maybe that could happen. But Lazio is the better club, and getting a half is interesting to me if they do play some of their best players. I'm not sure what to expect from that, though, to be completely honest. Next, Spezia +1 at home, so getting a full goal from Roma. Roma likely need to win this one. Spezia did probably a ton of partying after making sure they qualified with that big victory against Torino in their last match. So there's nothing to play for them. Roma's a lot better of a side and certainly have something to play for. So that's a little bit scary in that scenario, to be on the beach, only getting a goal and trying to keep Roma from scoring. Maybe they can do that. Spezia, when I've watched them this year, they've either been really good and competitive, or they've been terrible, even starting competitively and then just falling off a cliff once that first goal goes in. That might be what happens here, but certainly we'll want to see who they're starting compared to who they played last week in a match that really mattered. And then last but not least, Torino hosting Benevento, currently giving half of a goal with all the juice on the Torino side. So it looks like it's moving towards 3/4. Big number. Torino, this could have been like an awesome match that everyone wanted to watch, just as they were watching Atalanta AC Milan, because it would have been a win and you're in for Benevento, as they would have won the tiebreaker. But since this match doesn't matter, hard to really say what you want here. Torino celebrating that they qualified or were safe midweek probably reduces some of their interest in this match, but we'll see what that lineup looks like. And does Benevento come out and really try to put one last great performance in Serie A, or are they just crestfallen because they basically looked so safe a few months ago and have done, losing 4 out of 5 down the stretch, really, and that one draw last weekend, giving up those 2 more points, which could have made this match still matter. Disappointing, but it happens. So then I'll switch to Germany as we got 35 minutes on the clock. So we'll try to go through. Everything starts at the same time on Saturday, which is kind of sweet in my opinion. But I like the way that the Bundesliga does everything. It's not great if you want to watch it all because everything gets spoiled, and et cetera, et cetera. But so the title is already decided. So is all of the Champions League places. Everything's decided up top. So this is a whole lot of not sure who cares about these matches really. At the bottom, there's a big fight though. So that's, I think, probably where I'm going to spend most of my time. Augsburg somehow jumping to 12th is hilarious because they were like deeply in the fight and down a man last weekend. And they're the first match visiting Bayern München. Bayern giving 2 3/4 goals. They've shown they can blow out anybody. 4-0 down a man first half against Stuttgart. That's enough for me not to want to play Augsburg, who can't score and can't really defend, but somehow are staying in the league for next year. Dortmund then giving a full goal to Leverkusen. Dortmund's been playing a lot better lately, 5 straight wins in a row. It's hard to do better than that, clearly. Haven't had a great year, but Leverkusen, they've shown under this new manager that they're willing to defend, and that seems like what he was brought in to do. But defending and then trying to stop Dortmund are 2 different things, and only getting a goal, I'm not sure that's enough for me. As Dortmund, if they do play what I would expect to be a full lineup, as they want to potentially get as many points as possible. I guess that's not a huge desire, but it's been a pretty disappointing year. So I think they want to get some momentum entering next year. Again, not that important, but ultimately Leverkusen have shown that when they traded their offense to play defense, that they haven't been able to really score many goals, and you have to score to keep up with Dortmund. Hoffenheim then giving a half of a goal to Hertha. Hertha Berlin, poor year, but they're safe. So not sure that they have a lot to play for here. Hoffenheim, not either, can't move up a position in the table. So giving a half is kind of a big number, but ultimately it's probably deserved based on what Hertha has had to go through with their COVID quarantine and having to play a match every 3 days while everyone else has been waiting a week. Kind of incredible that they've escaped relegation and are safe entering the last week, but that's what happened. Would imagine a pretty quiet lineup from Hertha. Next, Union Berlin hosting Leipzig, currently getting a quarter of a goal. Leipzig, disappointing close to the year for sure. Drawing with Wolfsburg was big, coming back from down 2-0 in the second half, but ultimately that was one of those things where Wolfsburg just needed a draw to qualify for Champions League. And so they didn't really do much offensively in the second half. Probably should have if they wanted to win, but they accomplished what they needed to. Leipzig can't be caught by Dortmund, don't have a lot to play for, probably are mending some injuries and looking after who's going to play in the Euro, if that's a thing, which I think it might be, especially when you got nothing to play for. Union, on the other hand, want to finish above Mönchengladbach. They're currently 1 point ahead, 2 points ahead of Stuttgart and Freiburg. So they have some interest here. And I believe that's a Conference League spot to finish in 7th. So that's where they're sitting now. Can't catch Leverkusen in 6th for Europa. But ultimately that's, I think, important, and probably see a full lineup from Union. Not sure you'll see that from Leipzig, and Union have shown that they can defend, and they got some of their attackers back playing off the bench last weekend. So that interests me. A little more juice on the Union side, but that's, I think, a reflection of how much they care. Wolfsburg then giving a full goal to Mainz. Mainz, tough performance last weekend against Dortmund, but I guess that happens. They've been great since the Hinterhunde ended, or whatever it's called. Probably screwing that up, so I'll stop. But Wolfsburg clinched Champions League, are safe. Not sure that they have too much to worry about there. Mainz, if they can do better in this match, win it, or just better the result of Augsburg, who's going to lose to Bayern, they'll climb up and finish 12th, which probably doesn't matter too much to them either. Ultimately, I think, though, Mainz getting a full goal is an interesting number because they've shown they can defend. Wolfsburg's offense has been questionable, to say the best, or to say the least. That's what happens when you're rambling for hours and hours on soccer. But ultimately, I think Mainz can hang in this match, and getting a full goal is an interesting number considering Wolfsburg's been celebrating all week. Köln then hosting Schalke. So we move to the bottom of the table. Köln currently at 30 points, 1 point behind the relegation playoff spot, which is important to finish 16th, 17th, 18th are gone. But they're also 2 points behind Arminia Bielefeld in 15th. So a victory would put them ahead of Arminia and Werder, who have lost or drawn maybe 9 matches in a row or something now. So an incredible number, even up a man for most of the match last weekend. Got a man sent off second half right at the beginning just for a second yellow card. Incredibly stupid and embarrassing probably. But Werder is one of those clubs that's on the way down. If they don't do it this year, I think there's probably worth some bets about them getting relegated next year. Anyway, Köln currently need a win. They're a 1.5 favorite with most of the juice right now on Schalke. Schalke with a big win against Frankfurt last weekend. 3rd win of the season. Pretty disgusting performance from a big club in Germany, but the signs were there certainly. And when you don't win for like 30 matches consecutively, it's amazing. You don't get relegated the first time to make that sort of streak happen. But that was a big win. They've been playing inspired football lately, I think. They've been playing better. Had a 2-0 lead on Hoffenheim at halftime before losing 4-2. So there's some good here, I think. And the problem is I always like underdogs, and I don't know if I really want to back a team that's so far adrift with 16 points, a little more than half of what Köln has accrued this season. But Köln have all the pressure. A 1-goal victory is probably enough for them because they want the 3 points. I'm not sure. I think it is goal differential, I believe. So Köln currently is 1 goal differential point, whatever. They're minus 27 versus Arminia minus 28. So it certainly would help them if Arminia is drawing and Köln win. But they're far behind Werder, eight goals behind in goal differential. But I'm not sure that's going to matter unless they draw and Werder loses. And if that happens, Werder's going to have to lose by 8 goals. So that's pretty unlikely. Ultimately, Köln have shown that they are a little bit better offensively with whoever they acquired from Union, Anderson, who had been hurt all season, essentially. I'm not really sure there's too much we can expect from him, though. Florian Kainz has also been a good help to them, but I'm not sure that we can really trust them to beat anybody by 2 goals right now. When have they really even done that lately? I know they were up 3-0 on Bielefeld a few weeks ago and had to hang on for a 3-2 victory. So Mishras and Schalke, but I'll move along. Next is Frankfurt hosting Freiburg. Currently, Frankfurt giving a quarter of a goal, all the juice on their side, so it might climb to a half. Frankfurt have been a disaster since Adi Hütter announced he was moving to Borussia Mönchengladbach. So they've got nothing to play for. Freiburg to finish in the top half, maybe that's something that matters to them. I'm not so sure. But based on how these two teams are playing, I think Freiburg, you got to give them a chance here, though they're in a position where they want to possess the ball, and that leaves them open for counterattacks with Frankfurt having the ability to kind of stretch the field. That's scary. But Frankfurt have been a disaster lately, so it's hard to want to see them as a favorite or consider backing them at all on that side. Next is Stuttgart. Pick them to Bielefeld. So Stuttgart in the top half of the table right now. Maybe want to keep that going. We've been dealing with a ton of injuries. Arminia Bielefeld, not even a favorite here. All the juice really on the Stuttgart side, so it might even climb to a quarter. I think shows how little faith people have in Arminia. But ultimately, they've been competitive this whole time. They've shown even under the second manager has come in and just made them more, I think, pragmatic, but added a little bit more pressure defensively, but still aren't scoring goals. So it's really hard to expect them to do too much. Stuttgart should have plenty of possession, plenty of the ball, plenty of opportunities. Does Arminia push forward to win? If they did, they're safe, but So that would probably be a yes, but I don't know if they actually do that in practicality. They probably try to draw here 0-0 and try to survive if Werder and Köln can't win. But that puts them in danger as they'll lose goal differential to Köln, and which would put them in the relegation playoff if in that scenario where Werder doesn't win. So I'm not sure what to do here. If this moves to them as an underdog, I guess I'm somewhat interested in that, but it's surprising when they're in a kind of need to situation and Stuttgart don't have a lot to play for. Like, the market usually backs Bielefeld. So that kind of says something. They don't believe in Bielefeld at this point. I haven't heard any COVID stuff or whatever, but interested to see lineups on that one tomorrow morning. And last but not least, and then we'll wrap this up, is Werder Bremen hosting Gladbach, currently pick'em, all the juice on the Gladbach side. Just want to confirm. So Gladbach's trying to play for that Conference League spot, 1 point behind Union. So a win here would be important to them. Werder Bremen haven't won in forever, are hanging on to the relegation playoff spot that they weren't relegated last year because they survived on away goals. Certainly could happen again. I doubt they're playing for that. But if they draw, and Armenia lose, they would be in position to have the better goal difference to stay in the league, or be in that relegation spot. So they're looking okay, but they've been a disaster. Haven't won in like 9 matches. Hard to see them winning here. So I certainly understand Gladbach being the one with all the juice at pick'em, but I'm not sure what to say. Would love to get a bet against Werder Bremen again in this Bundesliga as a favorite, because they've been a disaster for 2 years now, really. But I'm not sure that's going to happen. And I'm not sure I want to really push on Gladbach too much, though they are the better club on the road. I don't think really matters too much unless fans are miraculously showing up in Germany where they're really conservative about all COVID stuff. So I doubt that's going to be in play. They probably should win. I don't see any reason for Werder to win this one. So I'm interested in Gladbach at pick'em, even minus 119 right now in the juice. So that's Saturday's big matches. I guess some that spilled into Sunday, but going through La Liga, Serie A, and the Bundesliga. You can follow me on Twitter, @thereal_G Warner. Hopefully I have some winning bets on this tomorrow. We'll see what happens, but thanks for the ride this season and looking forward to the Euros, where I think I'll do one of these for each group going forward. Thanks for coming. Talk to you soon.